Welcome to A Dram of Outlander. This is Desiree, your podcaster and the writer for ADramOfOutlander.com. For all things Outlander, from the Diana Gabaldon book series to the Stars TV series and everything in between. This is podcast episode 115, Drums of Autumn. So, we are just coming off of the Outlander TV series, season 3, 13 episodes, and Jamie and Claire and companions ended up at the Royal Colony of Georgia. That's where they washed ashore. So, does Drums of Autumn, the book, have them in the same place? We'll find that out in just a minute. I first want to give some background and information on the read-along. Just in case you didn't do the Voyager, Scottish Prisoner, and novella read-alongs with me between season 2 and 3. My take on the read-along is a little different. We go through the chapter or chapters, whatever I have slotted for the week, and I tell you what's going on and what I think it means, and is it foreshadowing, is it important? But I also like to look at the details. So if Diana Gabaldon mentions a certain area, I look it up and find information out about it. If she mentions, say, a medical procedure, I'll look it up. And some of the medical things that are in Drums of Autumn will go under Outlander Science Club. So there'll be extra bonus installments of the podcast. Outlander Medicine, emergency physician Karen Doherty will be joining me again during this read-along to help produce the Outlander Science Club. She will be doing some of the written posts, and then I will be doing all the podcasts, whether or not she wrote the post or I did. I look forward to Drums of Autumn. I love Claire's science mind and how she gets to doctor everyone. And there is one remarkable surgery scene in this book that I cannot wait to cover. So with the read-along, there is the schedule that will be posted on the Facebook page, on the Facebook group. If you're not part of the Facebook group, please join. It's really easy to interact with other fans, and it is searchable. And so if you're looking for the read-along, you just type in Drums of Autumn, and all the different posts within the group that have to do with this topic will show up. I will also post it on Instagram and Twitter, which is Dram of Outlander. And if you do want to join the group on Facebook, unlike the page, you have to ask to join and answer questions. So I know that you're not a troll, that you're a real person, and that you are indeed a fan of Outlander and will not be posting things that shouldn't be posted in the group. I love the A Dram of Outlander community because I rarely have to moderate. Y'all are really smart. I appreciate you. And you make it a really fun and comfortable place to be. There's no drama there. We simply get to enjoy the characters, the books, the TV show, and have really good discourse. We all don't have to agree on points. And it's really fun to see how this has impacted so many people in different ways, and we have a different point of view going into these stories, going into the TV show, and we get to share that with each other. It's phenomenal. That's why I do the podcast. It's not for great glory and honor. It's because I have other people to share this wonderful story with. And I consider it one big, huge, giant story. That's what happens to be broken up in smaller installments called big books and novellas, etc. So, every week I will post a blog with all the show notes and links and all the information in it. And within the post will be all the interesting factoids that I come across or that I think are interesting. Because I believe if Diana mentions it, there's a reason for it. And it adds color and texture to the story in a way that when you're just reading through because you're trying to figure out what's happening next, we miss a lot. And I want you to really enjoy it. I want you to immerse yourself into the book. It is a huge, big, fat book. And the plan is to go until the end of September. However, when we get the show announcement, when season 4 will be out. I don't expect we'll find that out until June or July of 2018 at the earliest. But if we do find out when it's going to air, and if it airs before the podcast of the book read-along is completed, then I will adjust the schedule so we can be done in time. If I make any further adjustments to the schedule, make sure you check into social media or the website to find out what the new schedule is. Because I may find as I'm going along and preparing that some chapters I thought would take me a long time, take me less time to write up my notes on, and so I might have things move a little bit quicker. After being in the show for 13 weeks, I'm changing up my writing style and doing the read-along, and it's a big adjustment compared to what we're used to seeing on screen. You don't have to stay within the chapters that are part of the read-along. You can read further, but I do encourage you during the read-along, if you feel so comfortable to do so, take notes. Write down things of interest for you or highlight it in your Kindle or on your Nook. Pay attention to the details, what things strike you, what themes are coming out, because I am not a literary expert. I happen to be somebody who's been reading since I was 3 years old, and I love books. But I'm not an expert. I'm not an English professor. I don't know all the ins and outs of literature to where I can give you all that very academic detail. There's many things that I can pull out, but I'm certain to miss things. So I want your feedback and for you to interact with me in this process. And I hope you enjoy it. Just like the podcasts for the TV show, there's adult content in these books. I don't stray away from it. I talk very frankly. Sometimes I'll be using adult language. And this is really not for kids under 14 to be reading along with. And I think the Outlander book series is really for 16, maybe even 17 and older, because some of the content is so heavy. But that's your PSA warning. And as a reminder, for those of you who haven't done this, there is an email address, contact@adramaofoutlander.com, or a call-in line for listeners, and I will include your comments if you email or leave a message for me at 719-425-9444. Okay, so where do we leave off of Voyager? So if you're new to the books and you haven't read the first 3 books, you're going to find that things are really different than the TV show. There was some departures that were made, and you're going to meet characters that you don't know. So I'm going to give background on what happened at the end of Voyager, the book, so that will fill in a little bit of those pieces. I also encourage you to get the Outlander Companion 1 and 2. You don't need 2 yet, but the first one has all the different characters in the books for half of the books, and then the second one's for the rest of the books so far. So, where did we leave off at the end of Voyager? Claire and Jamie and the crew find themselves blown off course and landing on the shores of the Royal Colony of Georgia. Claire had gone overboard. It was a freak accident, and her leg was entangled. She almost drowned and broke her leg. Jamie did save her. Duncan Innes, who Jamie was in prison with, and he's only has one arm. He's missing part of his other arm due to an infection. Fergus and young Ian are with them. Marsali stayed behind in Jamaica because she's pregnant and expecting a baby. She will join them after the delivery. John Gray is the governor of Jamaica still. And it is June 1767 where we catch up with them. Archibald Campbell in the books was a Free Church Protestant pastor, and he was a killer. In the book Voyager, there was a fiend in Edinburgh, and then there was a murder on Jamaica, and lo and behold, Archibald Campbell and his very mentally ill sister, Margaret, she was not someone who had visions. She was very mentally unstable and unhealthy due to some events after Culloden. And she was with him, but he murdered someone, and it got put on Tien Cho, and he was on the run. It turns out that Archibald Campbell was the murderer. Tien Cho ended up killing him in Voyager, and Claire was there to witness it. And he stayed behind in Jamaica. Geillis Duncan is dead also in the book, and they had found her in the cave at Abandawe. Tomato, tomato. Claire did kill her. And in the book, though, Jamie was shot by Geillis. And Hercules was not in the cave with them, but young Ian was, and she had severely sexually abused him, and he had been there for a while by the time Jamie and Claire were able to get to him, because months had passed, and they were a few weeks behind him, and they were in better sailing weather than what Jamie and Claire had on the Artemis, because they had to go to France. So, what do they have on them? They have some of the gems. Claire recovered from a broken leg, so it's been a little while since they've been in Georgia. And now they're actually in Charleston, South Carolina in June 1767. So they're making their way to North Carolina, where Jamie's Aunt Jocasta has a plantation. That's his mother's sister. She was the baby of the family. And she left Scotland after Culloden was a doomed failure with her then husband. So those are a little bit of the differences to keep in mind. And for book readers, a reminder, if you haven't reviewed Voyager recently, that that's where we're coming from. Also, in the book, Geillis was trying to go back into the future to fulfill the prophecy. But the prophecy was different than the 200-year-old baby prophecy in this TV show. Oh, and the other thing that is vastly different, Lord John did not take Jamie out of jail. He was never put in jail. He was questioned because he was friends with Tien Cho or Willoughby, and Willoughby was accused of murder. And the boat, let's see, and, another big fact I didn't write down that we have to remember is that in the books, Thomas Leonard and the Porpoise crew went after Jamie, and because he knew who he was, and the Porpoise ended up being at the bottom of the ocean during that great storm. Because in the TV series, they combined two different events with that big storm. And the Porpoise was lost. And so any evidence of what Jamie did or who he was and that he's in the new world is gone at the bottom of the ocean with the Porpoise. Okay, so we cleared all that up. You ready? So before we get into chapter 1, A Hanging in Eden, I want to read the prologue. These always have really interesting and usually foreshadowing items in them. I've never been afraid of ghosts. I live with them daily, after all. When I look in a mirror, my mother's eyes look back at me. My mouth curls with the smile that lured my great-grandfather to the fate That was me. No, how should I fear the touch of those vanished hands, laid on me in love unknowing? How could I be afraid of those that molded my flesh, leaving their remnants to live long past the grave? Still less could I be afraid of the ghosts who touch my thoughts in passing. Any library is filled with them. I can take a book from dusty shelves and be haunted by the thoughts of one long dead, still lively as ever in their winding sheet of words. Of course, it isn't these homely and accustomed ghosts that trouble sleep and curdle wakefulness. Look back. Hold a torch to the light recesses of the dark. Listen to the footsteps that echo behind when you walk alone. All the time, the ghosts flit past and through us, hiding in the future. We look in the mirror and see the shades of other faces looking back through the years. We see the shape of memory, standing solid in an empty doorway. By blood and by choice, we make our ghosts. We haunt ourselves. Each ghost comes unbidden from the misty grounds of dream and silence. Our rational mind says, no, it isn't. But another part, an older part, echoes always softly in the dark. Yes, but it could be. We come and go from mystery, and in between we try to forget. But a breeze passing in a still room stirs my hair now. And then in soft affection, I think it is my mother. So that's in Claire's point of view. Ghosts were a really big theme in Voyager. People kept popping up that we thought were dead. Jamie thought Claire was dead. Well, in his time, she was dead. She thought he was dead. Geillis was resurrected. And she had held those bones. So it is a big theme. And here, we carry those who came before with us, as well as those who have passed, who we don't know. Are they all about us? All the time? I think they can be. But I don't have any scientific evidence for that, of course. But it's interesting to see Claire's perspective on that because she's a clinician, she's a doctor, and she's not superstitious. But she has traveled through the stones, and that's inexplicable all by itself. So she knows there's more to it. She does believe it. Do we make our own ghosts? In the coming pages, we'll find out what this prologue means. Part 1, O Brave New World. Chapter 1, A Hanging in Eden. Charleston, June 1767. So it's been some time, probably a couple of months. Claire had to heal in Georgia from her broken leg first before they made their way north to try and get to Jamie's aunt, as well as to try and send young Ian back to Scotland as he promised to do many, many months before. And we find that drums are important. Yes, it's in the title of the book. And the first line of this chapter is, I heard the drums long before they came in sight. They're powerful. They are part of ritual. They are part of the military. They are part of joyful singing. Drums have power. And they say something without words. It's a very hot day. And the drums are sounded because 3 men are going to be hanged. Can you imagine in today's day and age, if you were out and about, you were at a local store doing your shopping and you went outside and you hear drums and you look in the square of your downtown and men are being put to death right in front of you for every man, woman, and child to see. Well, that was the way of it. It's not that long ago. hangings took place into the 19th century. Into the 20th century. They still take place around the world as forms of punishment. So it's pretty brutal, and not something I hope to ever see in person myself. The area is crowded with spectators, and one of the men of the trio is someone Jamie knows from Ardsmuir. His name is Gavin Hayes. Jamie helped him get mightily drunk per his request. What did Gavin do to get the gallows? What could he have possibly done for that sentence? He had stolen goods worth £6, 6 shillings. And in today's dollars, that would be 1,072 American. $1,000. He's put to death. That's a couch. That's a decent bed. That's not even a vacation if you go anywhere far. It's tragic. I cannot imagine losing my life for $1,000. When Gavin went to hang, he searched for Jamie, and Jamie called out to him and made sure he could see him. He wanted to be the last vision in front of Gavin's eyes before he died. That of a friend, that of McDoo, his chief. So no matter where Jamie goes, he can't really get away from this. And Gavin was one of the men who was transported when Ardsmuir closed. Now, some of those men that we met in Voyager that were in Ardsmuir, we will be coming across in this book. Because just like in the TV show, and I'm not going to mention it much, but there were transports. And in the TV show, many of us speculate that the role of Duncan Innes has been taken over by Murtaugh surviving Culloden in the TV show. When and how they're going to meet back up, we don't know. We don't know what the TV room writers are doing, but that's where I think it's going. So when I talk about Duncan Innes, you can probably put Murtaugh in there in his stead for the most part. That's what I think, at least. So Jamie is a loyal friend. So they watch the hanging, Claire and Fergus, and I believe Duncan is nearby. It's not a pretty business. And in the book, Diana notes that it can be efficient when the hangman knows his job. However, I pulled up from the United Kingdom a link on capitalpunishmentuk.org, and it's included in the show notes, on myths about hanging. Now, one thing I learned reading this, which really horrified me, was that it is partly true that hanging is a slow and painful death. However, as long as the rope is the proper length and the feet aren't touching the ground and all of those things, the person being hanged will likely pass out from asphyxiation, meaning no oxygen, and having their airway crushed. Hanging does not cause an instantaneous death. Now, I was mortified to find out when I read through this document, and I read through some other websites as well, that the heart can keep beating even if somebody is passed out for 3 to 25 minutes. That's awful. And that's when it's done right. Some of those who will be hanged will defecate and or urinate before and during the hanging. It can cause sudden opening of the sphincters, but we're not sure. And only click on this link if some pictures won't freak you out. The information is really interesting, I think. And this is a horrible way to die. I would much rather have a firing squad or somebody chop my head off. So the person is likely unconscious, even though their heart is going to beat for some length of time. And it is a myth that eyes will bulge out of their sockets and there will be other facial disfigurements. Yes, people can survive hanging, but it's very rare that it actually happens. So, this is not a very efficient, clean way to die, as the book would say it is. Just so you know. That's one of my favorite parts of doing this, is to be able to reference and verify information and also research things that I think are kind of fascinating. One of the things that Claire does as they're waiting for the hanging to occur is she feels her own throat and she checks her pulse in her carotid arteries. Those are the ones that run up the outside of your neck on either side. There are multiple pulse points in the body, inside of the upper arm, right underneath the breast or chest, on the left side underneath the heart. That's called apical. So there's brachial, apical, there's several more. And you can check someone's pulse. Part of the reason we would check pulse in other parts of the body is because the neck sometimes may not be easy to get to. You can get to the wrist easier on the inside, or to check for blood flow on an injured body part. Say somebody got their arm crushed and you want to see if there's still a pulse in the arm. Is the arm alive or not? Is the leg alive or not? Okay, simple. But I thought that was of interest. Hope you liked it. During this time, after the hanging, and Gavin is dead, one of the prisoners decides to make a break of it. And all hell breaks loose, and he seems to get away. They escape the chaos of the crowd to go find young Ian. He was not present there for the execution. Claire did not know Gavin Hayes, but Duncan Innes did, as did Jamie. So Fergus is sent to claim Gavin's body. And then the Mary Fraser band is rounded out when Duncan Innes comes alongside them. And good Uncle Jamie, who swore to his sister and brother-in-law he would send young Ian back after he found them. I still cannot imagine Jenny's face getting a letter from Jamie saying her son that he swore to protect was picked up by pirates and they had to follow him across the ocean. Only Jamie and young Ian. They're going to find the ship that's someone that knows Uncle Jared or Cousin Jared in France. And Jamie was going to see if he could make a deal and have young Ian working on the boat to get his way back to Scotland. They are deeply concerned about their money. And Jamie has it hidden in his pants, and Claire has sewn her pocket shut. So, they're keeping it safe, but jewels are not really the best form of money to have. And the colonies are not wealthy. There's not sterling to be found, hardly. So switching them out for actual material wealth is going to be difficult. And Claire mentions the fit of Jamie's pants. Because she asks about where he's hidden the money. And he says, "It's where my sporran would be, did I have one. So long as I dinna meet with the quick-fingered harlot, I'm safe." Oh, it's been a while since I've done a Scots accent. I apologize. And Claire said that he's a walking inducement to harlots. Stick by me. I'll protect you. Because it's giving him a little extra bulge in his too tight borrowed pants anyway. They find young Ian, or rather he finds them. And he seems exceedingly happy, like far happier than he should. And remember in the books, he's not 16. He's younger than that. And they go toward the dock in order to try and send young Ian home. And he says nothing at this point. He just goes along with it. Jamie is attracting attention from the ladies all along the way. And I expect probably from some men too. But what they have in their pockets is their entire fortune. Again, they are wealthy on paper, but they are functionally poor in reality. So the atmosphere of South Carolina, even outdoors, is stuffy and hot and windless. And it smells very bad. High humidity, lots of sweaty bodies, little access to bathing. Yum. Delicious odors abound. And we get the information that the Oliviers who had helped them after the shipwreck gave them modest transportation and provisions for their trip north. And then we find out that young Ian, of course, is up to no good. He's been dicing. Pretty dangerous gambling because he doesn't have any money of his own. And he won some money. So he says, hey, it's all good. I won, right? No problem. And he's also procured a rather wolfish dog named Rollo, who looks half wolf, half Irish wolf hound, which is what his mother was. So he's this giant dog. Now remember, it's 1767, okay? So this dog is very young at this point. Claire is very concerned about this dog. Like, what is he going to eat? Jamie's not sure this dog can go on a ship with him. And young Ian is just playing it off. Jamie becomes the animal whisperer, and he makes great acquaintance with the beast. Ian has an answer for everything. The dog hunts fish for himself. Here, smell his breath. No, thank you. I don't think I want to do that. And then this is why we find out that young Ian is so stinking happy. The ship sailed 3 days prior without him. So Jamie is now worried about what Jenny will say. It's not that I dinna want you, Ian. You know I should like nothing better than to keep you with me. But what in the hell will your mother say? The glow returned to young Ian's face. I dinna ken, uncle, but she'll be saying it in Scotland, won't she? And we're here. Oh, such a clever boy. Ugh. So Jamie decides he needs a drink. And they go to a tap room. They find a place to sit and the dog goes underneath the table. Fergus hasn't come back yet. So it's young Ian, Claire, Jamie, and Duncan Innes and the dog. And they're at the table and they're trying to make plans. Do they stay and try to sell a stone and secure alternate passage, or head north to Cape Fear, where Jamie's family is? Young Ian, of course, thinks they should, head north because he can help out and be a bit of protection. Of course, the boy who trouble always finds would not be extra protection. And in his excitement, he names all the things he hopes to meet: Indians, Native Americans, bears, panthers, and the foul creature, the skunk. That makes Auntie Claire choke, because the skunk is not a ferocious beast. Of course, we know that. But it has a very stinky ass. Jamie's also worried in this unfamiliar place about being able to protect themselves properly. against whomever and whatever they might come across. Because they're cities in the colonies, but thousands of miles west, it's simply open land. Like, we can't even imagine that living in the United States now, where it's completely unsettled except for this small area. It's settled by nomadic peoples, the Native Americans, but not by really much of anything else. It's wild and untamed. And he also knows that people will tell stories, and the Frasers and their group might be fodder for conversation. Somebody may have found out that they had gemstones. They didn't have TV. They didn't have radio. So conversation, that was their news. So he's feeling uneasy in that they can't really trust the people around them, even though they're inherently overall safe. But the rules were different, and people still carried weapons, and they only had 2 knives on them and not big ones. And they all feel that it would be safer in Cape Fear because of the large Scottish Highlander settlement there. It's supposed to be the largest Scottish settlement in the entire United States. And I did put a link in the notes that explains how many people came over. And Claire's heart sinks at the idea of having to sleep in the rough another few nights, or however long it takes in order to get to North Carolina. Her clothes are dirty and grubby, and she's only been able to rinse the outside clothing and let it dry, but she's been in the same shift for 8 days. She was really hoping for a real bed, even if it had bugs in it. But she'll do what she has to do, but she's dying for any kind of bath at this point. And they're having their ale, and they ordered food and they're waiting, and soldiers come into the pub, no doubt searching for the escaped prisoner. Jamie and Duncan were ill at ease with this. Do you remember what Jamie's tells are when he's not comfortable, even if his outside appearance and his facial expression and his mannerisms overall seem just mellow, not worried? He either will curl a hand into a fist or he taps the fingers of his left hand. That's one of my tells. If I'm very, very stressed, you'll see me tapping my fingers on one of my legs. I get that. It's a grounding technique, actually. The soldiers pay no attention to them. It's fine. And then Fergus arrives and is aggravated with how much the priest wants to charge to bury Gavin in the churchyard. And it's an extraordinary amount of money. But Fergus says, an Anglican church, of course. There are no Catholic churches here. Wretched usurer. He knows we have no usurer. Excuse me. I'll start that again at 40 minutes. It's French. An Anglican church, of course. There are no Catholic churches here. Wretched usurer. He knows we have no choice about it. The body will scarcely keep till sunset as it is. I told the super-fatted son of a pig that you would decide whether to pay or not. We could just bury him in the wood after all. Though, we should have to purchase a shovel. Sorry, I was a terrible Fergus. I will work on it. It's been a while since I've had to do the voices. He's hilariously French and insults everybody. I love it. I love Fergus. But the bottom line is they have very little money, and if they paid the 10 shillings, that would put them near penniless. Fergus had made a bargain with a rag woman, and I looked it up. It's basically a woman who collects rags. And it was used in this time period, and it's an English phrase. And she took his clothing and would wash the body properly for them and give them a shroud for Gavin. And he's in the cart outside waiting to be buried. I cannot imagine, again, dragging around a dead frickin' body. Now, dead bodies don't bother me, but they have no soul. They're funky, and they freak everybody out, and they smell really bad. So in this hot, humid weather and no ice machines, they can't put him on anything cold. So he's sitting out in the open heat. Blech. I can't even imagine. It's so gross. Duncan is well on his way to getting drunk. He's sitting there while they're all talking and he says, "Poor Gavin." And they go on to tell this lengthy story of a night that Gavin came across a spirit while looking for an escaped cow. He was mortally afraid of the dark ever after. Until he left home to follow the Bonnie Prince, he never went out after dark. So they can't bury him in the woods. He's scared of the dark. And they would never do something so mean. Putting him in unconsecrated, unblessed grounds is bad enough. But putting him in the woods, no. Nope. They can't do that to him. And young Ian wanted to know if the cow was waiting. Yes, the cow came back. But Gavin had said it looked like she had been ridden to hell and back. And the conversation moves. What happened to Gavin's wife and son? He never knew. His son was with him at Culloden, but he never knew what happened to him. He may have had a brother sent to the colonies, but there's no way to find him, even if there were lists. How would Gavin have had access to that in Scotland as a prisoner? How would his brother have had access to any list? So it's pretty useless, even if it did exist. And they decided it might be best to never know for certain what happened to your child. Hope could remain. And Jamie and Claire share this small moment, knowing that Brianna was safe and sound in the 20th century. And they had that hope and knowledge between them. So the server comes with their food, and she is eyeballing Rollo, and she's very careful to avoid him, and she gives them their food. And Jamie's concerned the dog might be hungry, and young Ian says, "Oh no, he'll hunt for himself. It's okay." And at this point, Duncan is drunk, and he's very mournful, and it's bothering him so much that there's no family left to mourn Gavin. He's cast alone into a savage land. He's hanged as a felon, and to be buried in an unconsecrated grave. Not even a proper lament to be sung for him, he says. He picked up the cup with difficulty, found his mouth with it. He drank and set it down with a clang. And he decided they're going to sing a song for him, a lament. And Jamie says, "All right, well, we can do it." And now there's already been singing in this tap room. It's crowded and full. People are on their way to being drunk, so it's probably fine. So Duncan decides to start off. And I love the word. Duncan nodded magisterially, bloodshot eyes surveying us. Without warning, he flung back his head and emitted a terrible howl. I jumped in my seat, spilling half a cup of ale into my lap. Ian and Fergus, who had evidently heard Gaelic laments before, didn't turn a hair. All over the room, benches were shoved back as men leapt to their feet in alarm, reaching for their pistols. The barmaid leaned out of the serving hatch, eyes big. Rollo came awake with an explosive woof and glared round wildly, teeth bared. So Duncan does this in Gaelic, which I don't know, and apparently he's a baritone. And it's translated as, "We are met to weep and cry out to heaven for the loss of our friend Gavin Hayes." And then Jamie chimes in. "He was born of Seamus Emmanuel Hayes and of Louisa McClellan in the village of Kilmartin in the parish of Dodonil in the year of our Lord 1701. And then they shout Gaelic words that mean "hear him." And by this time, the taproom crowd has decided that no violence is about to erupt, so they begin to join in. And they did not even know that Duncan was saying some pretty disparaging things against them, or against English. It was a good thing, because Duncan is very drunk at this point. And he looks at the soldiers and he says the next line, "Wicked Sassenach dogs, eaters of dead flesh, ill does it become you to laugh and rejoice at the death of a gallant man. May the devil himself seize upon you in the hour of your death and take you straight to hell. Hear him," they say. Of course, they're saying it all in Gaelic. The crowd is carried away with excitement, and Fergus has decided, in his mercenary ways, to pass a hat around, and they start filling it with coin. Even though they're filling it with coin, and he's denouncing them. In the show notes, I have included a couple of links to Scottish laments. One is someone just singing, and one is a BBC documentary piece. Claire decides she has to go relieve her bladder, and she sees the cart. And there's an outline of a body, and she presumes it's to be Gavin. So she's making an assumption, which tells us we need to pay attention to that. She presumed it to be Gavin. And she hoped that he had enjoyed the lament. Okay, Duncan Innes didn't talk at all, hardly. And so the fact that he got so worked up, was saying so much about Gavin, and then he led a song of lament in a tap room with strangers, this really seriously affected Duncan Innes. This is a major thing to him. Because you'll see throughout this book, he doesn't talk that much. And he didn't while they were at sea in Voyager either. Remember how embarrassed he was about being constipated? Claire decides her bladder must be relieved, right? She's outside at this point. And she hears a familiar tune coming from inside the tap room. The Anacreon Song. It was written sometime in 1770 to 1771 as a drinking song, and I believe it was published around 1780 the first time. So it was written 3 to 4 years after the timeline in the book, but who cares, right? It's fiction. But what caught her ear, Key, who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner, took the tune of this song and made it our national anthem in America. So I think that's fascinating. I had no idea the Star-Spangled Banner, the tune of it was based on a drinking song. I guess it was popular, and a lot of people knew it at that point. To end the chapter, Claire lifts her cup in salute to the wheeled coffin, and she echoes the melody of the singer's last lines. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. I drained my cup and sat still, waiting for the men to come out. So that wasn't going to be written for another 40 years, 50 years. I think it was 1820. Long time. Or 1812. You think I would have that part memorized. So this opening chapter sets the tone for life in the new world. The past has been literally washed away. They were shipwrecked. They're in the colonies. Yes, they're under English rule, but it's not like they have fax machines, email, telephones, instant ways of communicating. To get word back and forth, they have to take a ship from some port and go to England and then come back with word. There's not even telegraphs yet. So communication is very slow. And the colonies are kind of left on their own. The good king, though, rules over them. Again, lacking communication, the boots on the ground are what makes it happen. And each of the colonies has their own governance as well. So the weather is hot. There's not much money in circulation to exchange the gemstones with. They are outsiders. That is a really big thing. We saw that throughout this first chapter. that they're the strangers. Everybody else there belongs there. It's unfamiliar and potentially dangerous. Everywhere from the gossip that could be told about them to all the wild things of the vast wilderness. How are the soldiers and the lawmen going to keep everything in order? Things were set up and they were settled, but they're far from secure. Jamie is reasserting himself as the leader. These are his people. This is his small little clan, almost. And he always does that. He's like the Pied Piper. He's always collecting people and things. I mean, other than things. Fergus is faithful as the salty French sidekick. He's very useful and street savvy. Again, Marsali's in Jamaica waiting for the birth of their baby. Claire seems to be recovered from her leg, but as it was mentioned in the first chapter, it hurts her sometimes and it aches if she's on it too much. This is the Jamie and Claire as a recommitted couple stepping into their future. All of Voyager was about their separation and their initial reconnection. Now this is about their life beginning. And from here, they are simply Jamie and Claire. They don't have the insecurities and the worries and all of that. They've worked through it and they're simply together. But they are having to start over again. You know, Jamie was never meant to be Laird, and then his brother died. And then he went to France, and then he came home, and then he was an outlaw. And then there was Claire, and then there was Culloden, and then there was hiding in a cave in prison. So he's had multiple restarts throughout his life. He's never had a place of his own, just like Claire. They're very similar that way. She had her home in Boston for 20 years, but lacking having that intimacy with Frank and them really living separate lives. It was her home, but it was different than what she had with Jamie. She was there and stable, but it's not quite the same. But they're starting over this time together, and we presume they will be together throughout. And they're hoping that Jamie's Aunt Jocasta will be able to assist them as they move forward. Next week, we will be covering Chapter 2, in which we meet a ghost. And that will be posted on Christmas Eve. I don't expect you to listen on Christmas Eve, but I want to keep the same date that I've been doing it on Sundays. So we made it through the first chapter. One down and, 60 to go? 70 to go. Again, it's a very big book. So I would love to get your feedback and hear your comments and questions. You can call in to 719-425-9444. You can email me at contact@adramaofoutlander.com. You can leave a comment on the website post or where I posted on Facebook or Twitter. But please interact with me. These read-alongs are a lot more fun when I'm able to get in it with you and not just hear myself talk. And I will be doing a season 3 bonus wrap-up episode. It'll probably not be this week, but it will be coming. So where can you find A Drama of Outlander outside the podcast? Well, adramaofoutlander.com is the website, and you can listen directly through there or go to Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, your streaming service of choice. A Drama of Outlander page, which is open to everyone, and A Drama of Outlander group on Facebook. Please join. Super bunch of people are there. Instagram and Twitter, Dram of Outlander. There's no A in front. And every Wednesday night, there is a standing Twitter chat where we talk about the week's previous TV episode, or if we're doing a read-along, what chapters that we covered, and the podcast. And it's at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, using hashtag ADOO. And it's exceptionally fun. Come out. It'll break up your week. It'll give you something to look forward to. And there's an amazing core group of people who come out every single week. And how can you support the podcast? Well, first and foremost, share it with other people. Tell them about it. Have them come and join the Facebook group with you. Follow on other social media. Go on to Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and leave a review for me. That helps people find me as well. I wouldn't do this if I didn't have listeners, and if it's because of you that I'm here, and you sharing it with other people will bring more alongside. And I like our Drama of Outlander community. It's wonderful to be part of. You can also support the podcast financially. You can go to patreon.com/adramaofoutlander, and even for as little as $1 a month, you can help me take care of all the different behind-the-scenes aspects of doing the podcast. I do this all by myself, from start to finish. It's all me. Or if you want to make a one-time offering, you can email or call me, and I will tell you how to do that. I look forward to this next, year and a half. Did I just say that? Not quite a year and a half. About 9.5 months worth of episodes with you. I was thinking of the last Outlander, where I did 26 episodes of Voyager, 22 episodes for The Scottish Prisoner, and I did one of the new novellas before season 3 came out, after season 2. So I will keep us busy. So thank you for listening. Come and join the community, and please give me your feedback. I do really want to know what you like, what you want more of, what you don't like. I'm a big girl. I can handle the criticism, or the added girls too. I can take a compliment if needed. So I thank you so much for being here, and until next time, Slán Java.